Welcome to Lesson 8.5. Today we're going to talk about circle graphs, or as they're called, pie graphs. Now there are two types of circle graphs that we're going to be working with. The first one on the left is a percentage graph, because all of the numbers in the pieces give you a percent of the total that fall in that pie piece. So when you're given percentages, that's not the actual number. There's not 50 in this group, there's 50%. So half of the whatever the total is in this group. Same with the 10%, 20%, and 20%. The other one is a numbered circle graph, because these ones have actual numbers for each one. So they tell you how many of whatever it is that you're talking about falls in that pie piece. So for this example, there's 512 voters that voted for Zimmerman out of the total. There's 387 voters that voted for Vickers. So the percentage one doesn't give you the total number. The numbers one doesn't give you the total percentage. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be kind of going back and forth. If you're given a percent one, we need to find numbers. And if you're given the numbers one, we need to find percentages. So we're going to start with the percent ones. So when we're given a percentage of a pie piece, to find the number that actually belongs in that pie piece, you're going to take the percent as a decimal, very important there, as a decimal, and you're going to multiply that decimal by the total number of whatever it is you're counting with the circle graph. If there's 1,000 total, you'd multiply it by 1,000. If there's 400, you'd multiply it by 400, whatever it is. What you get as a result is the answer that you're looking for. Okay, so take the percent as a decimal, multiply it by the total to get your answer. Okay, so we have this circle graph here. How to determine a student's grade? Okay, they give it 50% is the final exam, 20% is quizzes, 20% is class project, 10% is class participation. So what they're going to do is they're going to have something like this. Given the circle graph and a total of 300 points. Okay, this is the total. We need to know this one. Okay, we're going to find the number of points in each pie piece. So to start out with, for the final exam, okay, it starts out at 50%. Well, 50% as a decimal is 0.50. So we're going to take that decimal and we're going to multiply it by the total of 300. And that answer is going to tell us how many points are towards the final exam, which is 150. For our next one, for quizzes, 20% is the quiz score. So I take 20% as a decimal, so 0.20, and I'm going to multiply that by 300, which is the total. So 20% of 300 is 60. So 60 points go from the quizzes to figure out the student's total grade. Class project is also 20%, so I should do 0.20 times 300, and again, I'm going to get 60. So 60 points are from the class project. And for our last one, we've got class participation. That's 10% of the grade, so if I take 10%, 0.10, and I multiply it by the 300, I get the number of points that come from class participation, which is just 30. Now when you're done, an easy way to check to make sure that you've done everything correctly, if you add up all of the numbers in each piece, the total should be the total. So if you add 150, 60, 60, and 30 together, you should get the total of 300, which we do. So here we have another circle graph. Now we're looking at somebody's homework for the given year. Okay, we've got 4 different areas. We've got math, we've got spelling, we've got reading, and we've got other. So given the circle graph and a total of 308 assignments, so that is something that we need to have. We need to know the total, okay, which is given to us right there. So given the total is 308 assignments, we're going to find the number of assignments in each part. Okay, so we're going to start with math. Math is 28% of the homework assignments. So I take 28% as a decimal, and I'm going to multiply it by the total of 308. And that's going to give me the number of math assignments, which is 86.24. Now, that really doesn't make sense in terms of assignments. You can't have a part of an assignment. So we round that to the nearest number, which 86.24 would round to 86. So 86 math assignments. For spelling, Spelling is 22%. So I'm going to take 22% as a decimal, and then I'm going to multiply it by 308, and I'm going to get the number of spelling assignments. So 0.22 times 308, I get 67.76. And again, you can't have 0.76 assignments. So we're going to round that to the nearest whole number, which gives us 68. For the next one, reading, 28%. Okay, it's the same as math, so I'm going to get the same answer. So I'm going to skip the rounding part, and I'm just going to say there's 86 reading. So if you have the same percentage in two of them, if you know how many are in one, you know how many are in the other. And for the last one, we got other, 22%. We've done that already. It was the same as spelling, so it's going to be 68 assignments. So now again, the easiest way to check, if you add up those four numbers, 86, 68, 86, and 68 again, you should get the total of 308, which we do. So here's our last example of finding the total number. So go ahead and pause the video, do this one on your own using a total of 400, and then hit play and see how you did. So you should have gotten that out of the 400 people surveyed, 80 preferred comedies, 100 preferred action, 120 preferred romance, 20 preferred drama, and 80 preferred sci-fi. And again, the way to check that, if you add them all up, you should get 400, which we do. So now we're going to take a look at the other type of circle graph when we're given the actual number in each piece. So when we're given the total number of the whole circle and the number in each piece, to find the percent of each piece, you're going to take the number inside of the piece, divide it by the total number in the circle, and then turn it into a, well, that's not supposed to say fraction, that's supposed to say percent. So make sure you change that. So turn the decimal into a percent. So our first example, when we're given the circle graph, find the percent of participation for each sport. Now you could look at this and say, well, I'm not given the total, which is right, you're not outright given it, but you know the number in each piece. There's no other piece that you don't know of. So if you add all of these up, you can find the total. So if I add all of the pieces together, 9 plus 5 plus 20 plus 12 plus 14, I get the total, which is 60. So my total is 60. So what I'm going to do then, for basketball, there are 14 people in basketball. So I'm going to take 14 and I'm going to divide that by 60. And when I do, I get 0.233 repeating, which that would give me, if I move it back to a decimal, 23.3 repeating percent. For soccer, I have 12 in soccer. So if I do 12 divided by 60, I get 0.2, which if I move the decimal over and turn it into a percent, I get 20%. For kickball, there are 20 people in kickball, so I'm going to take 20 divided by 60, and when I do that, I get 0.33 repeating. If I turn that into a percent by moving it over, I get 33.3 repeating percent. Make sure you include that repeating for the end. For football, there were 5 in football, so 5 divided by 60. If I do that, I get an answer of 0.083 repeating. If I turn that into a percent, move the decimal place over, I get 8.3 repeating percent. And finally, they put baseball and softball together, and there's 9 there. So I'm going to do 9 divided by 60, giving me 0.15. If I turn that into a percent, I get 15%. And again, a way to check this, if you add all of these up, you should get a total of 100%, which we would. Okay, so that's the way to check with this one. All the percent should add up to 100. If you're given a problem like this on the check-in or the quiz, remember to round to 2 decimal places like we have been doing. Our next example here, we're given the grades on the most recent test. Now, once again, we're not given the total outright, but we can easily find it by adding up how many are in each piece. So we've got 23, 43, 20, 11, and 3. If I add all of those up, I get a total of 100. So 100 is my total that I'm going to use. So for this first one, for the A's, there are 23 A's. So I'm going to do 23 divided by 100, which gives me 0.23. If I turn that into a percent, it gives me 23%. For the B's, there are 43 B's. So I take 43 divided by 100, giving me 0.43. Turning that into a percent, 43%. For C's, there are 20 C's. So I do 20 divided by 100, which gives me 0.20. Turning that into a percentage is 20%. For D's, there are 11 D's. 11 divided by 100 gives me 0.11. Turning that into a percent is 11%. And finally, for F's, there were 3 F's, so 3 divided by 100 gives me 0.03. Turning that into a percent, I get 3%. And again, the way to check, if you add all these up, you should get a total of 100, which if we add those up, we do. For this last one, we are given the student body president election results. Pause the video and do this one on your own. Make sure you find the total first and then find the percent of votes for each candidate. And then hit play and see how you did. Okay, so for Allman, you should have had 133 divided by 1524, which is the total, giving you 8.73%. Remember, we're rounding to 2 decimal places. For Young, 59 divided by 1524, 3.87%. Zimmerman, 512 divided by 1524, giving us 33.60%. Williams, 433 divided by 1524, 28.41%. And Vickers, 387 divided by 1524, gives you 25.39%. And if you add all of those percentages up, you do get 100%. So again, that's the way to check your work. Remember, we're rounding it to 2 numbers after the decimal for percentages.